So I've been out of town and doing 10 other projects and prepping for this hurricane that just came. And now I'm finally getting back into my solar battery and inverter room. So basically the energy bank for this whole project will be in this room here. Just got all of my sheets of Hardy board right there. That's the UL listed backing board for electric service equipment. And so that will make it a little bit more likely to not light this room up in fire if it were ever to get too hot, because obviously plywood is okay, but let's just spend the extra couple bucks and put some insurance behind it. And obviously I'm running this room, ripping out all the shelving and everything, and needed to know where those studs were in the wall. And I have this new handy dandy thermal camera, and if you can see right there, this is an easy way to tell where all of the studs are along the wall. It can see all the nails, and it can also see, I have it set so that it can actually, it's probably hard to see in here because it's super bright, but you can actually see the stud and the nails because the nails are a little bit colder. And so then I just put some painter's tape on the floor so that I can mark out where those are. Now, my configuration, because of the space is a little bit tight in this room, means that this battery here will be mounted flat against that wall, and it will have its junction box or its conduit box on top of it. And then I'm gonna have another battery directly above it. And in order to do that, I've gotten these, I think they're 300 or 600 pound, I'll tell you right on them somewhere, brackets that are basically shelf brackets. Now I'm gonna put some of the weight. So once this is backed against the wall, conduit box is on top of it, or where the conduit box is going to be, I'll make this sit just above it so it won't have any weight on the conduit box. And then I'll mount these into the studs so that there's a nice foundation for the unit above it to attach to. But that unit will also be suspended by this bracket here. And you can see they've nicely spaced out this backing plate with these nice holes here. So you take out these little screws and take this plate and mount it to the wall, and this allows you, there's a tongue on the inside that allows you to drop the battery into it, which snugs it against that, and then re-enter in these little anchor pins here. And that will allow that battery to be supported by this upper piece of steel along with these brackets. So I can have two batteries here, battery and inverter, and that will be one of the three. I'm gonna do battery, inverter and battery, inverter, and battery, which will leave that whole wall over there for the electric panel and all of the other accessories like the charge inverter and all of the other pieces of this project. So making progress, slow and steady, prepping for a hurricane. It's actually it's passing us right now. It's just let up raining. For one of the arms just went over us. The chickens that stay outside are a little sad about it. I strapped down all my solar panels as good as it's gonna get. It's only gonna be 25-mile-an-hour winds, but still, I wish that I had finished this project beforehand since I've already lost power once. But needless to say, just wanted to do a quick update, show you how you can use some of these cool tools to make your job and your life a little easier. This is actually gonna be used when I go up on the roof to find the rafters themselves so that I can actually mount the hardware to that. I actually have a couple more pieces of equipment coming from Signature Solar, which are part of what is called the RSD, which is a requirement now by fire code, even if it's not on the primary residence, a rapid shutdown system, which allows the panels to limit the voltage. These, the EG4s, and this is why you go with equipment that is part of a cohesive set. So these batteries and the inverters also have a total system shutdown switch. So if you push the stop button, it not only stops the solar array from producing power and de-energizes the lines coming in, but internally on these, if you take this side plate off, which is just the breather vent thing, it's just a plastic cage, there's a breaker in here which will trip. So if you hit the total shutdown, it's gonna be a pain in the butt because I'm gonna have to unscrew every single one of these screws, pull off the side, throw the breaker to turn the battery back on ×9 to go back into its operating phase. So when I bring the inspector out for the final, I'll leave those off so that when we demonstrate the functionality, it will be a quick rectification. But then I'll put those on and then hopefully never have to have a fire department come out and rapid shut down the system. But due to electric code, I think it's like 690.12, is all about rapid shutdown and how the requirements and the types that you have to have. And unless it's a ground mount or a open air structure, so something like a carport or like a gazebo, something where you can completely see through that structure at all times, then you do have to, by code, now have a rapid shutdown. I still think it's a little bit silly because there are better ways to do it. The battery shutdown, I think, is brilliant. I think for firefighters, if I were to recommend, I would say use sunscreen or some kind of a white powder foam to spray over like a fire suppressant that's a powder based, and that would actually de-energize the solar panels because they only make power when there's light hitting the surface. So a literal blanket would de-energize them more than some electronic device. And then it just kind of adds more complexity to these systems, which in my opinion is not really the best thing to do. But I definitely respect the idea that we want to maintain safety for those first responders. So here we are. We're going to comply by code. We're going to do it all right and do it DIY. So needless to say, putting some hardy board up on the wall, some concrete board to protect the structure from heat that might be generated by the batteries. It's about 61 or 63 in here from this right now. Anyway, it's freezing cold. And that's just to keep it nice and cool while I move around all this equipment, because these guys are heavy and moving that board around won't be much fun either. But just doing a quick update. Thanks for following along. And just to show, I had to rip out the remainder of the trim on the top and the bottom here, and I got the boards all kicking around everywhere. But I've installed 9 of these panels in the last 25 minutes, so they go in really easily. There's obviously tape and putty that you can do to kind of fill in the gaps and make it a little bit more pretty, which I intend to do, and do some caulking around the top just to kind of seal it off. But yeah, that's just in the last few minutes I was able to throw up, I think, 9 of the panels here. So just this one on this wall, because all the rest have to be cut. And just because this is concrete and I'm in a very tight space, I don't want all that air to be in my lungs. And since outside is full on hurricane, I figure let me just give it a minute and take a break, cut all these in the next 2 days by this weekend. And then I'll come back and do the puttying and taping, or the cementing and taping in between them. But yeah, that's the progress so far.